thanks for joining us today and sparing a bit of time. I know you've already been in the spotlight this morning with your session that you delivered. Can we just start with a really quick intro by you on who you are and what it is that you're here to talk about today?
Sure. So I'm Isaac Harvey, MBE. I'm a disability advocate, content creator, and I talk about disability, well-being, and mental health.
Amazing. And one thing I know is that you do a lot of your advocacy work and content work through LinkedIn, right? This is a great platform for you.
Yes.
And as a kind of fellow community to LinkedIn, arguably not quite as big, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the power of community, in your case, LinkedIn, I guess, in terms of sharing these messages and raising awareness around issues around well-being and disability.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I heard of LinkedIn and it was told to me, this is like the professional Facebook. And I was like, oh, why do I need to go onto another Facebook for? But I ended up joining just the year after the pandemic, 2021, where I primarily wanted to join talking about my involvement in an organization called Wheels and Wheelchairs, and that's where roller skaters push wheelchair users. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to show what we're doing to more professional eyes. So I started off talking about my involvement in that. And then it got to July of that year where it was Disability Pride Month. And that was a month I'd never heard of before, but it was basically celebrating those with disabilities. And I ended up doing a post about what it meant to me to be part of this Disability Pride and celebrating what we can achieve, even if we do have these barriers that our disabilities may put us in. I kind of went semi-viral where I started to get a bit more of a voice within the LinkedIn platform and people started wanting to hear from what I had to say. But then it also gave me an opportunity to connect with others within the community. And I learned so much from different people with disabilities and hearing other people's lived experiences and how LinkedIn's very open to allowing people to share their mental health journeys very openly. And yeah, it's just been such a great way of learning from the community and done things that I never thought were achievable.
Yeah. Could I ask, I really piqued my interest. You said that one of the things that really kind of kicked off your presence on that platform was the awareness week or the awareness month. Do you think that's a really important thing? I've got kind of mixed thoughts on it, because it's great to kind of get the ball rolling and to bring eyes onto certain subjects, not just disability, but all sorts of things, mental health. But then the other side is you don't just want it to be for 1 week, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my same feelings. I mean, awareness days are great because like I said, I didn't know about Disability Pride Month. Yeah. And that's a month about basically me and my disability and what I've been able to achieve. So I'm glad for the awareness, but it should happen 365 days of the year. We can't just kind of like for Pride show that we've got the flags out and then we don't actually do anything behind the scenes to make sure everyone feels included. I think it's something that needs to happen all the time. If we're going to bring awareness and celebrate it, it should happen all the time in all aspects.
Definitely.
I guess it's really good to sort of have a spotlight moment, right? So
Absolutely.
that we can all start listening to a very specific thing and raise the conversation on that topic. But then it's as long as we don't switch off afterwards.
Yep.
Which I guess is why it's great that you can continue to share those messages on the platforms that you're on. So it sounds like you've really been able to kind of build awareness and education amongst everyone that's following you and connecting with you, but also help people who are directly living with the same experiences that you've got, experience in. Is that right?
Yeah, it's basically a bit of a two-way street, I guess. I share stories of things that I've gone up to, but I'm also very realistic if it goes horribly wrong as well. Because I don't want to just show, oh, it's all fine and dandy. It's, I want to give a real representation of disability and the challenges that sometimes are faced when it comes to living with a disability. But it's also been very educational for me, learning about, for example, those with visual impairments and the importance of image descriptions on posts, how I was kind of putting a barrier up on my own content for people who are not able to access my content if I don't add an image description, or having alt text, or as a video editor, adding captions for those who are deaf. So, you know, I've learned so much from the community. Felt like I was living under a rock when it came to the disability community. But I'm very grateful for everyone that I've been able to connect with.
Yeah, amazing. That's good. The power of community, hey?
Absolutely.
And what do you see as the main kind of link between disability awareness and well-being more broadly in the workplace? Like, what's the...
I feel disability is a conversation that needs to be more at the forefront of every conversation, especially when it comes to DE and I spaces.
Yeah.
Because disability is one of those things where anyone at any given time can acquire a disability through an accident or a health condition, and making things accessible for everybody. So making it accessible for me is making it accessible for like a lot of people to be able to get through the door and feel welcomed, and that can really affect the well-being as well. I see like well-being well-being and accessibility starts at home.
Yeah.
You could have the most fantastic building in the world, but if it's going to take me 5 different buses and different trains to get to that workspace, I think it's really important that's really put at the forefront. So,
bit off topic, but just because a lot of people are talking about it at the moment, how do you feel about the push for people to return to an office and central space?
It's I think it should be choice. I definitely think it's choice, because I feel so for example, in my work, when it comes to video editing, I have my own setup that I'm comfortable with, and that works for me. And I know if I was to go into an office to do that, a lot of things would need to be put in place for me to do that, which I'm entitled to do that. But if I'm already comfortable at home and I know I'm going to get the work done, then I feel that that should be a choice to be able to do that. Yeah. But I also feel some people need to be in the office to really have that human connection and be able to have that face-to-face working, because some people just can't work behind the screen. So I think it should be a choice.
Yeah, it's got to be autonomy. It's got to be, right?
So that's why hybrid's so good.
Yeah.
And how it's come about because of the pandemic. You know, it just goes to show that yes, we can work from home, but if we want to work in the office, I think that should be applied too.
Yeah. I just think organizations that are mandating return to office, it's so short-sighted. You know, I get part of where it's coming from. You know, there's those days when you really don't want to go in, and then you drag yourself in. It's almost like the gym, right? And then you drag yourself in, and then finally, you know, when you get there, you're like, oh, I'm actually quite pleased I made the effort.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly you just like to have the choice, to be honest.
Because it's not accessible for everyone to do that.
Yeah.
See? So that's why the choice is so really needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isaac, can I ask you about a quick conversation that we were having before we got started?
Sure.
Just because it's really interesting. So you, very early on in your career, sort of knew that you wanted to pretty much work for yourself, which presents, I imagine, lots of challenges, a lot of people who run their own businesses feel, you know, like networking and the vulnerability of having your own business and the inconsistencies and challenges and things like that. But, you know, what about someone that does want to be employed, who is living with a disability, and therefore wants to get into the workforce, but is feeling like there's barriers for them in terms of actually achieving employment within a company?
Yeah, so I think it's being open with the employer, basically sharing what you do need to be able to work. But also it's not a really good scheme, and it should be a lot better. But I don't know if you've heard of Access to Work. So it's a government scheme that basically gives you an award to be able to have money towards travel into work, or if reasonable adjustments that the business doesn't have to pay, the government would pay, so people are allowed to work, having equipment such as laptops or things, just to make it easier to work. So government schemes like that are really helpful in allowing people to get into work much easier. and then there's no pressure from the business side of having to worry about, oh, you need all of this, we can't do that. But actually, the government are wanting to do that. But like I said, it's not a perfect scheme, because only an article that my mum showed me last week is there was like 2,000 people on the backlog, but now it's jumped to almost over 29,000 because of COVID and things. And that means a lot of people are now finding it difficult to get to work. I'm also, I'll say this openly, you know, I've applied for access to work because, you know, I'm able to do a lot of things, but having that support would help elevate that to new heights. So helping me with the admin side of things, being able to organize travel, do some video editing, because at the moment I do all of that myself, and that can be quite a lot. And then if we're talking about well-being, looking after myself as well. So take a step back, but then when you take a week off, you have to come back to that whole week that you had a time off. So, you know, it's a bit of a catch-22. Like,
Well, I was just gonna ask, and don't get me wrong, but it sounds to me like incredible scheme to exist, and you use the word elevate there, and that sounds like how it should be. It should be about elevating. It shouldn't be taking the responsibility away from employers to have those facilities and budgets in place to support recruitment and employees who have disabilities. Is there a risk that that's what the scheme is doing?
I think there's some sort of responsibilities needed, because obviously you want to look after your employees. If you're a good employer, you want to look after employees, and rather than saying, oh, we can't do this, kind of looking at ways around it. I think sometimes when you say, when I need a reasonable adjustment, it's like, oh, no, we can't do that. It's kind of shut off straight away, but actually it's working towards actually what can we do? What steps can we make to make it happen? So I think there is some sort of responsibility by employers, but I also feel with the government scheme makes it easier for employers to want to make things more adaptable and accessible for people with disabilities to join the workforce.
And without making it too political, because we've just talked about a real positive from the government. You'll have seen the headlines, was it this week or last week, about the reduction of fit notes and sick notes and whatnot. Have you got any reflections on that? How do you feel about those headlines?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people be mentioning about that. But again, it's just putting up a lot more barriers that are not needed. Like for me, for example, I get a lot of pain in my legs, and you know, I am self-employed, and I do have that choice of saying, okay, I'm going to take a day off today. But you know, for some people who are part of the workforce, do need to be able to give that sick note in, and they're not just being lazy or just doing it because they want to. Like, people do have these conditions that are really they can't help. And sometimes just having that day off allows them to be able to maybe work for a week afterwards. So I think kind of all these barriers that the government keeps putting up. I mean, also, don't know if you heard, during Disability History Month in December, they got rid of the disability minister. And it's like, you know, why, you know, we're going backwards in society. We come so far and then we seem to go backwards. And it's like, you know, why these barriers being put up? It's not helping anyone in that instance.
Yeah. Can I ask more of a personal question?
Sure.
What do you do to look after yourself and your self-care? And when I say that, I don't just mean the things that you need to do to kind of keep your body feeling and functioning, but you know, what are your go-tos?
So it was, one of the things is having a bit of time to myself, and through meditation, sometimes having a bit of a breathing exercise. One thing I said earlier in my session is, you know, sometimes when you say meditation, it's like, oh, I have to spend hours doing this, but actually 5 minutes, 5 minutes to yourself can do so much to oneself. Make sure that I eat healthily as well. And just take the time to watch a bit of YouTube and have a bit of fun. I think it's just, just having a bit of fun with the things I do.
Escapism, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. I think I watch too much YouTube.
Sometimes too much.
Shorts is an addictive thing.
Yes.
And if you had a couple of sort of key messages to share directly to our main audience, which is, you know, senior leaders in the wellbeing space within organizations, and you want to say like one or two key things to them about the importance of your work and what you believe in, what would they be?
I think having conversations like this are so important. Just having that conversation and be willing to listen to others, and get rid of the assumptions, such as, people with disabilities, they can't do that if they're in a wheelchair, or they can't do that because they're visually impaired. A really powerful video that I shared on my LinkedIn for World Syndrome Day was about the impact of assumptions, and it was following a young girl, basically talking about the different assumptions that are put up in her day-to-day life, such as, one example was, she was going at the gym and she has a trainer, and basically she was saying, if my trainer assumes that I can't hit harder, then I'm not going to, because that's what you're teaching me. Like, I assume that you can't do it, so that's what the reality I'm going to be creating. But if you change that around and say, actually, maybe you can hit harder on that punching bag, then I'm going to do that for you. So it's kind of like putting down those barriers and actually speak to people and realizing what they can do rather than what they can't.
I did see, what campaign was that? It's ringing
Really
a bell.
good.
Is it the?
It was
is
really
it
good. Did the lady have Down syndrome?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's a really powerful video. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Door, I think the company's called.
Yeah.
They do a video every year, for World Down Syndrome Day. But yeah, that was like a really powerful video. I think it really goes beyond Down syndrome, just any disability or any person. Assumptions, how they can be so impactful to someone's life.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe in this world of work, perhaps we do focus a little bit too much on what we can't do.
Yeah.
Or what others can't, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's the assumptions.
But even ourselves,
Well,
right?
it's true, yeah.
But perhaps we just need to move the tone to what we can do.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Amazing.
So, yeah, thank you.
So much for your time.
Of course,
Yeah, this was just a micro podcast, but if you ever fancy doing a full length version of it, then
Yeah, sure.
we should stay in touch, definitely.
Yeah, let's connect and
Let's do that.
there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.